Hello, everyone. This is Making an Impact. Welcome to our Thursday night Impact Wrestling Talk. I am the foe, Cody Defoe. With me tonight, calling an audible, coming in at the last minute as the savior of our show, OLED Ed Fries, dropping in to help us out as in Astrid's absence. Ed, how are you this evening?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting to watch Impact tonight, but I was like, all right, I got the weekend. I can catch up. I did last week the same thing. I'm like, I can catch up on what happened at Rebellion, all that fun stuff. And then I get the message, and I'm like, sure, I can watch Impact. This looks like a good show. I would have closed with the opener and opened with the closer, but,
whatever. I mean, titles and such, it's all logistical. This, of course, is the second half of the show that I was live for in Toronto at the Rebel Entertainment Complex last week. Really, really fun show to be a part of. I enjoyed a lot of it. Other parts, not so much. We'll get into it. We'll dive in. We're going to talk about all the different matches, touch base on how we think things went, how we think things are progressing, how the matches laid out and broke down, how the stories are setting up for Under Siege. Want to quickly pop in. Astrid is here in the comments with us. Thanks for joining us. Even though you're not on screen, Astrid, you're always here in our hearts.
Absolutely.
Ed, I want to kick it off with what I thought was kind of a banger of a BTI match here this week. Kenny King versus Channing Decker. I've had the pleasure of seeing Decker live in our local independent fed here in my hometown, and now seeing him on a bigger stage with someone the caliber of Kenny King. This match was something that probably deserved to have a bigger stage than a BTI, in my opinion, even if Gia Miller didn't know what Channing's last name really was.
Gia didn't seem to know a lot of things on this show. I was really sad for her because, like, when I watch BTI with her, sometimes it's hit or miss. Sometimes she's on her game, and then there's nights like tonight where she was even so confusing that Hannafin was getting confused. She was trying to find a way to say hard to see how hard he can get hit because he's a hardcore guy. And they went through, I want to say, a 30-second stretch of trying to figure out how to say get hit hard, and they kept botching it. And I'm like, oh God. Oh God. The match was fantastic. This kid was great. I want to see more of him. I really hope, I know it's sad that they're just getting through with the Toronto loop. We probably won't see him again for the next few weeks, which is unfortunate because one of the great things about Impact is they bring in some of these other people and show off some of these local wrestlers when they start doing these different loops through. Yeah, it was really good. I always also love seeing Kenny King wrestle. He's one of my favorites in Impact. He's one of my favorites in ROH. Going through the years, I've always felt like he's a bit underutilized everywhere he goes. So I always feel like Kenny King, needs a little bit more, and this was a really fun match. Barry, I'm gonna probably start doing the same. I tend to tune out the commentary, says Barry on BTI.
Very much happy to see you in the comments here this week, Barry. We missed you last week. Hopefully everything was good. I've been very cognizant of Gia's commentary since she started doing these BTI matches, and I feel like most weeks has been a step ahead for her. This week, it just, I don't know what it was about Channing Decker. She just couldn't get it together in this. Starting off right off the bat when they announced him as Channing Decker, and she made the comment about, wait, I thought he was facing Channing Tatum tonight. And it just went downhill from there.
I don't know what was worse. Ray Welt in the main event or Gia Miller in this. I don't know.
Well, we'll get there. I will say being there and seeing this for myself, this Toronto crowd absolutely loves Channing Decker. There was the sign that was actually pointed out on camera that was there very prominent at the front of the stage saying sign Channing Decker. I am 100% in support of that. I would love for Impact Wrestling to sign Channing Decker. The match itself, fast-paced, high-octane, just really, really highlighting both of these performers. There was the spot where they went to the outside and Kenny took a little bit of offense to Tom Hannafin talking about Nick Aldis in the middle of his match. We kind of circle back on that a little bit on the main show there. And then Kenny just kind of rolled through a high cross body into a royal flush to take the victory out of this one. all in all, for a BTI match, we love BTI here most weeks. Both of us and Astrid as well. That's why we focus on it ever since. I took a pot shot at our good friend Trey Miguel out of that for being on BTI. But in all honesty, before the Impact is must watch if you're watching Impact Wrestling, because there's just as good of octane and action on those stories as there is on the main show.
Yeah, the match is always worth watching. It's not always going to be great, but it's worth knowing what's going to happen. Um, Even if you watch it instead of before the Impact, even if you watch it after the Impact, it's always worth giving it a watch.
Absolutely. We'll jump into the main show. We had just a quick recap of Deonna's segment from last week, the new age of the Virtuosa, her crowning at Rebellion and where the story's going there. A quick snippet of Steve Maclin's changing of the guard ceremony last week and the follow-up that happened with Scott D'Amore and PCO leading to our Under Siege main event. And then we jump right into the action. And for the second time in a row, we open this show with a match where when I saw it live, I was really hoping I would get some kind of context or story as to how we got here. And we got nothing. And this match was not as good as the previous two incarnations of this matchup, but still a solid match between two fantastic knockouts. I'm talking about Masha Slamovich and Jordynn Grace. Mm-hmm. And from the promotional posters that were put up before the tapings, it was supposed to be Masha Slamovich versus Killer Kelly, which made sense coming out of Hardcore War that those two would face each other. At some point over that weekend, they called an audible, and we ended up with Jordynn Grace in this position instead of Killer Kelly.
Killer Kelly had some kind of medical issue Saturday night into Sunday. Whenever they were going to do the tapings, the night of she wrestled Hardcore War, did something. I think she may have eaten something that she didn't agree with her that had something in it. She ended up in a hospital for the night, and she wasn't unable to compete. I remember seeing that on Twitter, and that she was disappointed that she wasn't able to have the match. I remember seeing it posted.
Makes sense. I must have missed it being there and not actually checking my social medias in between the two show nights, but would have appreciated something on the show just like acknowledging this, or at least giving us some kind of backstory of how we ended up with Masha and Masha and Jordynn facing each other again after the first two of their matches were both of them were match of the year candidates for 2022, and now we get them as an opener on a weekly show with no backstory whatsoever. And as good as the match was, it fell short of their other two, and it really just feels like a fall from grace for Masha Slamovich, going from undefeated to suddenly 3 losses to Jordynn in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I think we both definitely echoes Barry's sentiments that hope Kelly's okay. They had a promo package for her during this show, so I assume everything's going to be fine going forward. Sometimes bad luck happens. Sometimes, stuff just goes wrong, and you got to improvise. In terms of improvised matches, this is about as good as you're going to get. Going ahead and having Jordynn Grace fill in for Killer Kelly, having a match that makes a lot of sense. I would have liked to have seen Masha go over. I agree. I think it was I think it's an unfortunately silly choice to have Jordynn win again. I mean, she just put over Deonna in the main event of the last pay-per-view. She doesn't necessarily need to win. She doesn't need
and
to
especially winning clean, right? Like not even just winning clean, winning without a finish, winning on a simple roll-up.
Yeah. It just I like the sequence. Like, I agree that it's unfortunate that that's how the match ended. But I love that sequence of them going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with those 1 counts. And then all of a sudden, Jordynn just gets the better of Killer Kelly and gets her down for 3. But yeah, Masha's been booked. I don't want to say she's been booked poorly, because she's had really good booking up until about the last 6 months.
Even the booking through the Hardcore War story and leading through like the Bully Ray, Mickie James interactions, she was still booked in a fairly strong manner. She was taking some losses. She was not as unbeatable as she had been, but she was still being booked in such a way that she felt strong. She felt important. She felt like someone that was still on the cusp of that title. I feel like losing this match clean just feels like such a massive step back for Masha. Like, have some kind of lighting effect, some kind of camera, like a pre-taped promo backstage, somebody show up at ringside, something to make it feel like you're at least trying to protect your interest in her, leading into what looks like a storyline moving forward out of this. But now she's coming back off of having been on the losing side in Hardcore War and now losing clean to Jordynn Grace. So what's next for Masha? Like, at this point, I don't know where you go with her unless somehow you're going to work her into the tag team division, because it feels like there's no spot for her for the Knockouts title anymore.
But then the question is, if you say you're going to work her into the tag division, who's she going to tag with? Like, is there somebody that makes sense for her to tag with? I don't readily see somebody obvious for her to tag with at the moment. I mean, maybe Jody Threat, but that seems weird because Jody Threat seems like a babyface.
The most obvious to me would be Killer Kelly, and going the same route we went with Kelly and Taylor Wilde briefly before they split and brought Kylan King in.
Yeah. Barry jumps in and says, I don't understand it unless they're trying to keep Grace happy during contract negotiations. But see, that's the thing. Like, I can understand trying to keep Jordynn Grace happy, but here's the thing. I don't think there's anywhere Jordynn Grace can go. Like, it's unlikely she's going to AEW because of the issues that Jonathan had with AEW and his position on the card there when he was Ring of Honor champion. It's unlikely that she's gonna go over to that direction. So then maybe is it WWE? Well, not really. I don't think WWE has that talent level kind of booked in. Like, they have those people that they have penciled in for that kind of a wrestler. I don't know if she fits the mold of what they're looking for or desire right now. Like, maybe she'd go and take the payday, but I think with Jonathan there, I think it makes more sense for her to just stick around and be the top of the card and be the gatekeeper. She doesn't need to keep having championships. She can just be that gatekeeper.
In regards to Barry, though, like, I think the more enticing point to Jordynn at this point is very possibly her entrance and foot in the door now in the powerlifting like competitions that she's getting into. You know, she's starting to get more into the bodybuilding, powerlifting, like the muscle competitions, and away from the wrestling ring. And there may be some level of enticement that she goes off and does that for a while and takes some time away from the wrestling ring. Maybe pulls like a Mark Henry, goes and becomes the world's strongest woman and then comes back again. Something along those lines. I could definitely see Jordynn Grace taking that path with her career if she's not actually under any binding contract to Impact Wrestling and just working a handshake agreement.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it'd be a shame to see her go because she's such a stable portion of that division where you can have, for the most part, good matches with her with pretty much anybody on that roster. And she's a capable... She's not Charlotte Flair, but in the same vein that Charlotte Flair is a steady hand that okay, shit goes wrong. Here, give the title to Charlotte. We can go 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months with Charlotte Flair as champion. You can do the same thing with Jordynn Grace. In case of emergency, break glass, give Jordynn Grace championship.
I would argue that that's the position that they've chosen to go with Deonna, though. I feel like Deonna Purrazzo is that in case of emergency break glass in Impact Wrestling right now, especially given the results of Rebellion and how we got to Rebellion and where we're going out of Rebellion. I feel like Deonna is that safety net.
Isn't it nice to have two of them, though? Isn't it great that you have both of these wonderfully talented women who you can go, okay, everything's gone to hell. What do we do? Jordynn Grace versus Deonna Purrazzo. One of them becomes champion, and then we book something else. Like, get to that point and then figure out the rest later. It's such a delight to have the two of them. It would be such a shame for TNA, Impact Wrestling, whatever you want to call it, to lose one of them.
That's a nix on the TNA there. That's not a thing
Yeah,
anymore.
I know. It's so ingrained. We had the Frankie Kazarian stuff later where it just all those TNA images. We had the Magnus thing after this match where they had the Magnus promo where you're showing all the TNA Magnus stuff.
Well, yeah, let's jump to that because that is next. We got kind of a promo package there on Nick Aldis and where he started, where he came from, his story, and how he came back now. Um, Very similar to last week, they had him sit down and talk about it. This week, it was kind of a a collage, a montage of all of his kind of greatest hits. How did that hit with you? Did that kind of get you excited for Nick Aldis being back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a big fan of Nick Aldis. I think that the 10 pounds of gold did him so much good in revitalizing him as a main eventer because he always felt like he was a step behind the guys at the very top of Impact, even when he was the world champion. It didn't feel like, because that was the Dixie Carter era, and it was heel Dixie, and it's, the Jeff Hardys and the AJ Styles and this, that, and the other thing. And he never felt like he was the man. And then he became the national treasure, and he held that 10 pounds of gold. And he had that match with Cody at All In. And he went around in the world and defended that NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. And coming back and seeing Magnus and being like, this is Magnus. We liked him. Here's Nick Aldis. He's Magnus, but better. I think is a really fun look at what's going to happen.
I think it's interesting to peel back the curtain in the way that they've done here, talking about, when he came in, he was using this, this character, this persona of Magnus and started and got over as Magnus, but then he had to leave to discover if he could actually be himself and succeed as himself instead of this glorified character. And now he's gotten over as himself and he's coming back to Impact, not as a character anymore. Now he's himself and he's just going to be Nick Aldis.
Yeah. And honestly, at this point, I think Nick Aldis will sell more tickets than Magnus could.
Yeah.
If they pulled the WWE and were like, no, nothing exists outside our bubble, he's Magnus, I don't think he does what they need him to do if he has to come back as Magnus. Whereas coming back as Nick Aldis, I think he's gotten everything he needs to be that main eventer. They've put a big roadblock in the way of Steve Maclin with Nick Aldis, and you've just got to wait and see what happens. Cody has a fan. The Omen fan.
Hello, Omen fan. Thanks for popping in. I see your Devils won today. We're just talking here about some Nick Aldis. About to jump into the Steve Maclin in-ring promo from tonight's Impact. Feel like kind of that was all I had on Nick, unless you had anything else, Ed.
No. I'm excited to see what goes on from here.
So we go back to the ring. We have Steve Maclin making his way out. Kind of discusses the end of last week's show where Scott D'Amore brought out and announced PCO as his next challenger. Talks about how he wasn't running. He was a tactical retreat from PCO. He's not a coward, so why wait? And challenges PCO to just get the title match out of the way tonight and come on down to the ring. And of course, it's all a ruse. Somehow, some way, again, with no explanation, Steve Maclin has enticed Champaign Singh and Shira to come on out and decide that they're going to try and fight PCO. And I know how much you love Raj Singh and Shira, Ed. So how did this make you feel?
So while I don't love Champaign Singh and I don't love Mahabali Shira, what I hate more is when we have... All right. Steve Maclin has conquered the mountaintop. He hasn't quite gotten to the peak of the mountain because Josh isn't there. And he can't beat Josh. to become the king of the mountain, so to speak, because it's Impact and we can use that phrase. But he's finally gotten to the mountaintop. And you're like, all right, well, we got this little show ahead of us. You know, well, we know he's going to Nick Aldis, but we got to put somebody else in his way. He's going to war with Canada. Well, let's see. We got plenty of great Canadian wrestlers in Impact. You know, we could do this guy. Or you know who we should do? We should throw him PCO. PCO? Scott, that's the best you got.
I'm okay with this because Scott's basically so pissed off with Maclin at this point. He's throwing a monster, an undead monster who just spent 6 months feuding with Eddie Edwards because Eddie Edwards couldn't kill him.
But did he win the feud? I don't even know if he won the feud because I don't care anymore about the feud.
Yeah, he won the casket match at Rebellion, put Eddie in the casket, won the feud. So, you know, he comes off of this. PCO won't die.
No, Pierre... He will not die. I will say this every time I see this man on TV screen. I remember watching him as a child stealing Bret Hart's jacket as a pirate. He was a pirate who stole Bret Hart's jacket in the 90s in WWE. That's how long this guy's been out there doing this. And by the way, he's great at it. He's been great since the 90s. He's still good now. But
he may even be perfect.
By the way, I never knew that was is that actually the official name of PCO? Perfect Creation 1?
Yes.
I honestly never knew. I never knew what PCO stood for.
It is actually his real life initials, but it is Perfect Creation 1.
Okay. Pierre Carl Aulette, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have Barry trying to start trouble, saying we're going to start a faction war. Be Team Astrid if you're going to be anything. Don't be Team Ed. Ed's just a fill-in. Raj Singh is a decent wrestler, good on the mic. He's annoying. Ditch Shira, and he'd be a good mid-card heel. I honestly don't disagree with anything said here. I think it's a valid thing. Like I said, I think Champaign Singh has potential. I think that there's something you can do with Singh. It just felt weird that they're coming out to defend Steve Maclin. Like, is he paying them? I would have liked to have seen some, like you said, some rational reason why A and B are both happening. Because Impact tonight did a lot of this is happening, but we don't know why.
It felt like this entire Fallout show being there live. There was so much of it when I watched the matches play out in person that I'm like, I can't wait to come back and watch the televised version to see how we got to this. Like, these matches don't make sense. How did we get here? And now here I am watching and talking about it with you, and I'm like, I still don't know how we got here.
Yep. I hate to say it, Impact being Impact. Just throw matches at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, and I mean, none of it was bad, and the story kind of developed itself through, but just how do you get to the story? They don't have a chapter 1. We're jumping straight to chapter 3.
Yep. And like, is it so hard to be for Maclin to have like walked up to these guys as he's walking out of the thing and just like hand them a fistful of money or something like that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's as simple as something simple like that, where Maclin acknowledges that he's the one who did this and gives us some kind of rational reason.
Yeah, just like a wad of money handoff or like a handshake or,
Find Hernandez's money from 2020 when, remember when Hernandez had like a wad of money wrapped like on like a chain around his neck and somebody stole it, and it was a program for like 8 months about who stole Hernandez's money?
Yeah,
like, and the match,
I don't want to knock it. I don't want to knock it because it was fun, but really I just feel like there was a lot of backstage segments that were just missing from this whole thing.
Yep, I agree.
Like, even as simple as just having a backstage interaction where we show somebody walking to the ring and have Singh and Shira having a conversation with Maclin backstage would be better than nothing at all.
Yeah. Raj doesn't need money. He's Champaign Singh, the richest man in wrestling. Then why did he do it? Like, him and Steve Maclin don't walk in the same circles. I guarantee you, these two gentlemen don't walk in the same circles. So how did this come about then?
And Singh and Shira have had no crossings of paths with PCO. So,
Yep.
like, there is no reason for these two to be involved here. And now Singh somehow put his foot in his mouth and ended up getting beat for it.
And it was a fine match. Nothing to write home about.
I really enjoyed the setup though, with Santino coming out after they've like beaten him down 2-on-1, and Singh trying to bribe Santino. Santino makes the comment about, "Oh, American dollars. These are worth twice as much in Canada." And he's like, "I'll just keep that, and now you've bought yourself a match."
It's Impact. Probably tarot cards. We'll get to the tarot cards because I did some investigation tonight during the main event because, well, I needed something to do during the main event.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Ed's researching tarot cards now, Astrid. Quick, come back.
Yeah, the match was fine. It's nothing I'm gonna remember next week. It's a match that happened. It was fun while it lasted. It was better than the main event,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it happened.
Singh got a lot of offense in this.
He did.
Like,
he looked great.
And it's weird because having been there live and watched it, I recalled this match as PCO basically squashing Singh getting almost no offense, and the match just being all PCO. And then I'm rewatching it tonight. I'm like, holy crap, Singh actually got a lot of offense. PCO was getting beaten down for a fair amount of this match. He always kicked out at one. He was never in danger, but I didn't remember that PCO was the one taking more punishment in this. And I don't know. I think that's a bad sign that Singh had all that offense, and I still remembered him just getting squashed in the match.
Yes, it's not good for Singh long term that you just think of him as such a loser that even when he takes 60% of the match, 70% of the match, he still just got squashed. Oh boy.
I will say, because I have to say it every time, the D-animator scares the crap out of me every time PCO hits it. I'm always afraid this man's just going to die on my screen, hitting or missing a D-animator.
Mm-hmm. I have the same fear I have with PCO that I have with Lita every time she goes to the top rope. I'm just like, please don't die. Please don't die. Please don't die.
It's like every time Jeff Hardy climbs a ladder or gets behind the wheel of a vehicle.
So here's the thing. With Jeff Hardy was smart enough at some point in his career. He realized, if I'm going to keep doing flips, I need to at least flip forward so I can probably do it, as opposed to continuing to flip backwards, which could hurt me. Like, at least Hardy was smart. Think about this. We're talking about Lita, PCO, and Hardy, and I'm considering Hardy the smart one. That's a bad discussion point.
Yep.
Oh, God.
Let's move on from that now.
Let's definitely move on.
We got a quick flashback moment of the week, again highlighting Nick Aldis and his time in Impact previous, with his win over Christopher Daniels. Just going to quickly flash back and flash over that. And then we got into a design promo. And this was a pretty basic, pretty standard promo coming from Diener. Just mad at Sammy. Everybody kept telling him Sammy was there to portray him. He trusted Sammy. He believed Sammy. He let Sammy get in. And then Sammy actually did betray him, talking about basically inflicting pain on Callahan. Starts talking about how he ripped out EY's heart and apparently fed it to the wolves. I don't know what Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards wanted with EY's heart, but hopefully it was good.
Oh, the American Wolves.
And then talks about what the design do to ABC tonight is just a fraction of what they'll do to Sammy. Pretty standard, pretty basic stuff coming from Diener here. Nothing world-shattering or anything like that, I don't think.
No, but it's still more of Cody Diener just taking that next step. No, was it anything earth-shattering? No, it's bog standard, ooh, I've been betrayed heel promo. That being said, it was well done, bog standard heel promo. That whisper yell that Cody Diener does is so good that it makes you listen to every word he has to say. I don't remember every word he has to say, but at least I listen. I listen
Made you
to it.
listen at least.
Yeah, but I mean, like, because at the end of the day, like you said, it's kind of that bog standard, just generic betrayed heel promo number 4.
Yeah.
Um, and again, just because something's predictable and generic doesn't mean that it's bad. And the match, it sold me on the match coming up. Not that I needed much selling to watch Team ABC take on Alan Angels and Connor. Like, that's not something I need a whole lot of selling on. I'll watch that match most nights.
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely. It was, we'll get to it, but it was definitely what they promised, that it was a fun match. I did say when Diener made this turn and when he ripped out EY's heart that it gave me the sense that Diener is being prepared for a top of the card role. And I really feel like how long they've spent with him working with Sammy through this story and now going into this, he was working with Sammy before. EY leaving was because of Sammy. You had Sammy come in, now join the design, work months with the design to go back to Sammy and Diener in the feud again. The amount of time that we have spent with the design and Sammy Callahan really makes me think that the Death Machine has a pretty firm hand in grooming Diener to be a main event star right now. Oh, did I lose you, Ed? I think I might have lost Ed. I'm just gonna keep going here. We'll talk quickly. The Coven promo we had discussing the upcoming match with Deonna, that we had just a quick tarot card reading with Kylan King and Deonna, flipping cards, talking about Deonna. They're talking to the spirit about the there we go. We got Ed back.
Sorry about that. My internet decided to die for a second.
That's okay. I finished talking about the design and then it just kind of froze on me.
It did.
Now I've lost my thought. Did you get to kind of through what I was talking about with Diener and Callahan prepping?
Yeah, it's great. I think Callahan is the perfect person to prep Cody Deaner for something in the future. We need a babyface champion for Deaner to really excel in that. So I'm interested to see who that will be that they have him work with. But I'm happy to see him move up the card and start going towards the top of that card. It'll be fun.
Yeah. I don't think he's anywhere. I don't necessarily think this is the year he's going to win it, but it definitely feels like we're looking at him as a future Impact original who's going to come a long way and get a lot further in the company than some others.
Absolutely.
The Coven promo. I was just kind of starting to lay it out there. Taylor Wilde asking the spirits to help her inflict pain or something on Deonna. I don't know. I couldn't really follow. It was mostly just, jibber jabber between her and Kylan here, talking and laughing and cackling with each other.
So here's the thing. I've asked for a long time here to make Taylor Wilde more witchy. That the biggest witchy thing she does is dress in black and do the W and the tarot cards. They gave me more witchy vibes from her tonight, but at the end of the promo, she's laughing about it like it's a joke. Because she says the exact words, I don't know if this spell's going to work. If she's a witch... You're right, Barry. I apologize. She had a candle. But the fact that she had... that she took this so seriously that she didn't even know if the spell's going to work. Well, if it's not going to work, why do I take her seriously that she's a witch? Like, again, in NXT, we have the Unholy Union, where we have Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. And, they do their basic, magic-y, witchy stuff. But they don't treat it like it's a joke. They don't treat it like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. They just do their thing and believe in themselves and make you fake it till you make it kind of stuff. And I'm just like... And poor Kylan King getting dragged along in all this, doing her damnedest to make it real. And you just got Taylor Wilde there, supposed to be the pro. And I keep looking at it and going, man, this Kylan King's really bringing this Taylor Wilde up by the bootstraps,
You know, you talk about the NXT duo. I haven't watched since that duo formed. I kind of left right around the time they decided that Kaylee Ray wasn't going to be KLR anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm not up to speed on that. But we're talking about a company right here that has done such amazing things with Abyss, that has done fun things with PCO, that has had the Decay running roughshod for almost a decade now, that has had Father James Mitchell portraying multiple different roles. You had Sue Young in the Undead Bridesmaids. You've had so much supernatural
Rosemary.
success.
Rosemary.
And I was going to leave Rosemary for later because we are
Okay.
going to talk about Rosemary, and I was going to discuss the contrast
Yeah.
between this Taylor Wilde Coven segment and the Rosemary segment we get later on in the night. And just like you said, taking it seriously, fake it till you make it, whatever the case may be. Impact has had so many people with so much success with the supernatural and just over the top stuff like this. And this just feels like a total flop.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but
I mean, we
I don't know
can't
what
beat a
else.
dead horse. She was in the main event.
I don't know what else to say about Taylor Wilde at this point because I feel like we've said it all week in, week out. And for whatever reason, Impact has just put all their eggs in her basket.
It's amazing to think that, like, let's talk about returning legends who have been out of the ring for years and come back. I talk about how dangerous I feel Lita is with one specific move. Like, when Lita's in the ring, I don't generally feel like she's a danger. She didn't have a great night a few weeks ago at the pay-per-view. But overall, other than that, WrestleMania match, Lita's been okay since she keeps coming back for these one-off spots. Trish Stratus has come back and looked like $1,000,000. Trish Stratus was gone a hell of a lot longer than Taylor Wilde was, and Taylor Wilde looks like she's a rookie again, and Trish Stratus looks like the pro and Hall of Famer that she's supposed to be. And Impact is just like, no, we'll take her. And it's like, you've got Kylan King, you've got Rosemary, you've got Jessica, you've got all of these incredible people. I mean, I know Sue Young just had a baby not too long ago. Can we bring her back because at least she's entertaining?
I mean, I could count out and list off an extensive list over the last couple women's Royal Rumbles of women who have been out of action for years and years and came back and had better appearances in the Royal Rumble than Taylor Wilde has had in any match since coming back.
Barry brings up a good point, though. That is Taylor Wilde's amazing powers in action, that she keeps getting big matches.
Yeah. You know, maybe that's how she's a witch. Maybe she's like voodoo cursed Scott D'Amore and Santino into believing she's somehow a top tier talent.
Maybe.
We had a couple quick segments here. Some of the better segments I thought of the night. One that was kind of iffy to start, but I liked where it ended, and one that just was really good all around. So we had Johnny Swinger with Zicky Dice, following up on last week's conversation with Santino, where Dice offered to pay the fee and the transportation to bring somebody in to wrestle Johnny Swinger. Unfortunately, there's a language barrier, so Dice has to go to the back to get this person. And out comes El Dinerico. Very quickly, Swinger manages to use a pretty standard wrestling roll-up and get the roll-up win. Heads backstage, celebrating, and Zicky Dice is there and pulls off the mask. To nobody's surprise, it was Zicky in costume as El Dinerico. We had... Then Santino walks up, and Zicky quickly tries to put the mask back on, but it was too late. Santino's seen him, decides that he's going to nullify the victory for Johnny Swinger. Johnny gets upset, blames Zicky, saying it was a stupid idea, and I'm pretty sure this is the end of Swinger's dungeon.
It seems like it's the end of Zicky and Swinger together. My entire reaction for the entire segment is Astrid's emoji.
It was fun live. It was a lot of fun live. There was a really long gap when Zicky went backstage to get changed that got cut in post-production, but it was abnormally long to the point that Johnny had to get on the mic and talk to the crowd just to get us all hyped back up again because we were falling asleep waiting for Zicky to change.
Like, I don't want to say it was bad. Like it's not okay. It was terrible, but it was terrible in a funny way. It's terrible in the way that all things that Johnny Swinger does is terrible. It didn't take up too much of my time. It made me chuckle. It made me laugh. And it made me hopeful that Zicky Dice is going to get to do something actually impressive going forward. Because, hell, Zicky Dice is a former NWA television champion. Like, he's a talented in-ring wrestler, and they've had him working with Johnny Swinger.
They confused me a little bit, though. Santino in this, confused me when he said the victory over Zicky didn't count because the agreement was that Zicky was supposed to bring in somebody who was a non-roster talent. So the fact that it was Zicky, he was nullifying the victory. But then when Santino walked away, Zicky yells after him, "So do I get a contract?"
That was funny.
I'm like, wait, so is he non-roster or is he roster?
Santino had a bad night overall.
Yeah, he did. And we'll get to the rest of that right quick here. But Johnny basically tells Zicky to go back to the Outlaws or something and walks off on him. It definitely felt like this was the end of Johnny Swinger and Zicky Dice as a pairing. It's been fun while it lasted, but I'm on the same page as you that I would like to see Zicky get to be Zicky. We've seen him in the Learning Tree. We've seen him in Swinger's Dungeon. I want to see Zicky be Zicky. I want him to do his own thing, not be stuck under somebody else's umbrella and gimmick and character right now.
Yeah, the outlandish Zicky Dice is going to be fun to watch. Hopefully we get to see it.
Yeah. The other backstage segment we got was following up on that BTI segment. We see Channing Decker in a room backstage as Kenny King comes in. Kind of a nice nod there between them that Channing acknowledges, Kenny is the better man. Thanks for letting him wrestle him and learn from him. King basically tells Channing to dismiss himself from the King's presence and then walks over and sits down beside Sheldon Jean. And this is kind of an interesting setup for me because in one sense it makes sense, and on the other I'm like, we haven't seen these two cross paths, so how did we end up here? And maybe this just is, Kenny coming in and acknowledging that Sheldon's kind of been starting to make a little bit of a name for himself, offers to help him guide Sheldon's ship. Sheldon asks, well, what's in it for you, Kenny? And King just tells him to keep doing him, keep doing you, kid, and don't worry about what's in it for me, just worry about what's in it for you. And Kenny does make a mention in there also of when he snapped on Tom Hannafin about the Nick Aldis stuff and talking about, Nick Aldis getting all the attention and not Kenny King. I guess kind of first question to you, Ed, is do you think this is a pairing we will see going forward, that Kenny and Sheldon could align here, or will this be Sheldon and Kenny feuding?
I'm not sure. The biggest problem I have with this is, as an American, I don't know who Sheldon Jean is. I think he's been on the show a couple times in the past couple weeks, on some of those weeks that I might not have noticed. I might have accidentally missed a backstage promo or something like that. But
so he's only been on a couple BTI matches, and he's only been back for a few months. He did the Georgia tapings, he did the Florida tapings Astrid was at, and he's done these tapings now. He had been active a little bit more pre-COVID back in 2019. He hadn't, from what I looked up last week with Astrid, he had not wrestled since 2019 until the Georgia shows in January.
Okay. It's interesting. Kenny King is so, and Barry hits it right on the head, and I hate to steal from Barry, but I'm going to. Kenny King is most weeks he's involved in the show. Barry says every week, I say most weeks, because there are many weeks where you don't see Kenny King. But he's never consistent. They never give him anything to do. The BDK was always something fun that I enjoyed. Him in Shane, what was Shane's name in Ring of Honor? Shane Taylor. Shane Taylor's crew over in ROH. It made sense. In Honor No More, it felt like he kind of fit in there. It's a shame that Kenny just seems to be this guy who they just bring in to do X. Oh, we need a male body of a talented wrestler. Drop in Kenny King. He can do it, and he can, and he does it great. I loved the swagger that, you know, the kid comes up to him, Decker comes up to him, he's like, oh, thank you, you know, this was great, I really appreciate this. The exact same conversation they would have had backstage, and Kenny King as a professional would have been like, it was fun, I appreciate it, thank you for coming back to me, and they would have walked away and he would have done it. Because it's on camera, Kenny King has to be a dick, and so like, oh, thank you for letting me beat you in your hometown, and tells the kid to hit the bricks. Like I said, it's great because I think it's fun and it gives you an insight to what would happen backstage between two talents, especially a local talent versus a televised in-ring talent. This is something that would probably happen, I would imagine, on the indies. But as far as Sheldon goes, and the question you asked, I don't know what they're going to do with the two of them, because I don't know enough about Sheldon Jean to know which way it's going to go. I could see them being a tag team, or letting Kenny King kind of guide him through the X Division and do something fun with that, where it's all about what's beneficial for Kenny King and what his end game is going to be. And like he tells him, just sit there and do you. Don't worry about what's in it for me. Just make sure that you get what you need to get out of this, and have this kid outsmart Kenny King.
Yeah.
That could be a whole lot of fun. But we have to wait and see what's going to happen and how to get there. Also, speaking of indies, hello, Barish.
The other question I had is the Nick Aldis stuff, because we touched on it during the match. We touched on it now after the match. We've got Maclin is tied up with the PCO stuff for Under Siege now. Do you think we could be heading that Kenny King ends up being kind of the first Aldis feud we get in Impact?
Yep, seems like it. If they're not going to do Bully, it makes sense to do somebody else, anybody else, and I think Kenny King fits that bill. You got to... Who's your best hand that's a heel who's not involved in anything right now? Like, that would be the question I would give. Go down the list of all of your heels on the Impact roster. Who's the best in-ring competitor who can go with anybody, especially a guy who hasn't worked a match that I know of in a good 4 months, 5 months, 8 months? It's been a while since Nick Aldis has been on TV having a match.
There's another name that would come to mind, but he got hauled off in a casket on Sunday.
I agree. And Eddie Edwards is another good one. And like I said, that's why I'm like, if it's going to be Kenny King, fine, that makes a lot of sense. Because, agreed, if I had to go down that list, I'm like, all right, who's in stuff? All right, Kenny King, Eddie Edwards, they're right around, and they're not far from each other, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, the gap between them on that top heels list, they're probably right after each other, if not maybe one person in between.
Yeah, it definitely feels, and going back to Barry's comment about Kenny King always being involved in stuff but zero consistency, it just feels like Kenny is that veteran guy with the skill and the ability and the talent and that repertoire and that resume that keeps him right on that cusp where he's never actually crowning himself a champion, but he makes a good gatekeeper. He's a good gatekeeper to the X Division. He's a good gatekeeper to the world title. He's a good guy for, Jonathan Gresham feud, a speedball feud. He's, a capable guy to pop into the hardcore wars and have realistic reasoning for being aligned with a Bully Ray. He had the history with Eddie Edwards. He can pop in there. He's really just a jack of all trades in Impact right now, where he doesn't have any set direction, but he can go any direction and never feel out of place. It's frustrating because we'd love to see him. We all love Kenny King. We want to see him succeed and get that direction and that point and get to a place where we can be happy for him for getting over that hump. But at the same time, it's never a bad thing if you're consistently on TV and being featured and never feel like you're just out of your element.
Yeah. And that just goes to prove the greatness that is Kenny King. That he can do all of those things and never feel out of place. I mean, this is a guy who was on the same season of Tough Enough with The Miz. Like, people forget that. He's been wrestling so long that him and The Miz were in the same Tough Enough class. And
Yeah.
The Miz is... Say what you will about The Miz, and you can say a whole lot about The Miz. The one thing you can't say is that guy hasn't dedicated every moment of his life to trying to be the biggest star he can be in this business. And it's just a shame that two guys of equal... Maybe Kenny's better at pretty much almost everything than The Miz. And The Miz has got far better resume than Kenny King ever will. And it's a bit of a shame.
I feel like it would be a toss-up on who had the better mic skills there.
I
feel like the one thing Miz has always had going for him is being a safe worker. That's something the Miz has over almost everybody in any company at this point. Is the Miz is somebody that you can always trust to go with anybody and not hurt them.
Yeah.
Let's jump into.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're ready, we can jump into the next match there.
Yeah, let's go for
it. So we got the tag team match that we teased earlier. The design of Kon and Angels with Deonna at ringside, taking on the Impact Tag Team Champions in a non-title match. Ace Austin, Chris Bay, the Bullet Club, the ABC, whatever we're calling them today. I really, really enjoyed this match. I enjoyed it live, and I enjoyed it just as much on the rewatch. A couple things I picked up on the rewatch that I didn't actually notice from afar, starting with what looked like kind of a rolled ankle possibly for Chris Bay, but he managed to fight through it, work through it, wrestle through it. And by the end of the match, you couldn't even notice it was there, but it definitely seemed when Kon rolled on top of him, you could hear him audibly, "Ow, my ankle!" And he rolls out of the ring and stayed down for quite some time. And when he finally got back up, you could see he was kind of favoring that ankle. So hopefully he's okay. It looked like he was fine by the end of the match, but a bit of a scary situation there. This match played out pretty fun. I think the end was a little bit predictable. How did you feel about it?
I mean, we knew where this was going. It was only a matter of time. I really enjoyed this. It was fun to watch. And again, it's a fun TV match. If this were on pay-per-view, I'd be a little disappointed. I'd be a little irritated. It's on TV. It's fine. It doesn't have to have a finish. You can come back to this in a couple months once you get done with the Sami Callihan and Deonna stuff. If you want, you can come back to the Bullet Club having to defend against Deonna and crew with the design and whichever combination you want to put them in there. Because I think that there's a lot of good combinations that you could freebird the design with. You could have Angels and Deonna for a smaller, faster group. You could have Connor and Angels like we had tonight, which is a really good combination that I really enjoy. Because Angels is just such a good tag team wrestler, and people forget about how damn good Victor and Connor were, the Ascension, in NXT before they decided to absolutely shit all over them on the main roster. But these guys were fantastic in WWE, and Connor was a big part of that, and he's still such a good tag team wrestler. I liked finally figuring out what ABC meant. That was nice. They gave us two definitions of ABC tonight, which was nice. The Ace and Bay connection, and then on their Titantron it says Ace and Bay Club. So we get two definitions of ABC. But no, I mean, having ABC in a match, you're never going to be disappointed. I don't think there's a way to have a bad match with these two guys in the ring.
No.
I think we could get in the ring with Ace and Bay, and they'd somehow get a 2-star match out of us. I really do. I think somehow they'd manage to find a way to get a 2-star match out of us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really agree.
We could try and make it happen. Quickly going to say goodnight to Astrid. Thanks for, joining some comments, even though you couldn't make it onto the show.
Oh yeah, Barry saying Impact's tag division is the best I can remember. So many good. Impact's tag division is one of those things that never really falters. It's always going to be kind of stacked. There's always going to be a group of 2 or 3 tag teams that are world-class caliber tag teams. I don't think this is the best it's ever been. I can remember back in the day, there were some, like, I go all the way back to the weekly TNA pay-per-views with TNA and Impact and things like that. So I go all the way back to when it was TNA NWA. And you had tag teams like America's Most Wanted and the Motor City Machine Guns. And you had, you know, Daniels and Styles. You had Daniels and Kazarian. There are Beer Money. There are so many great versions of the tag team division in Impact. There's never a bad time for tag team wrestling in Impact. And
It would be hard to pick a certain point in their history to declare the best either.
Yep.
You know, it's always in such flux and such motion. And right now we've just seen another shift in that, right? You know, we've got Heath and Rhino who are kind of out of the picture. You've got Motor City Machine Guns who have gone off and done a little bit there in JPW Strong stuff. You've had Myers and Cardona running around for a bit. You've had Ace and Bay now. We have Moose and Myers forming up now. You've had Crazy Stephen Black Truce running, and all those teams from the past that you've listed off, and lots more, right? You had when the Aces and Eights were running around. You had all of the different teams over the years, and it's just, you know, if the Knockouts division is Impact's bread and butter, their tag team division is that protein that goes with that bread and butter.
Go Jay, thank you for stopping by. We greatly appreciate any of the love that people have. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny. Impact has such a stacked division everywhere, but they're always overlooked because they're on a bad network or they're mishandled from the office side. You know, and I'm not saying now, I'm saying throughout the years, it's always been something. And Frankie Kazarian talked a little bit about it. I think we can talk more about it when we get there. But there's always something. But like the X division for a good 10 years was Impact's bread and butter. And then they had the Knockouts division. And they started that. And they started the Women's Revolution. I'm a WWE fan, but I know where the Women's Revolution started. The Women's Revolution started in Impact with the Knockouts. Putting on great matches, main eventing shows, Awesome Kong and Gail Kim. I mean, the beautiful people, all of that. There's constantly something that makes Impact the best at what they do. And right now, I think it's their tag division. I really do. Like, as great as the AEW tag division is with teams, I don't feel like it feels like that's the best tag division in the world, because I feel like week in and week out, Impact's tag division is booked so well.
And I think a large part of that, as we're talking about, is ABC.
Yep.
Ever since these two were put together, Jay White saw something in both of these two, brought them into his Bullet Club fold, left them to run the Bullet Club contingent in Impact, and they really have, just from the minute they took on that mantle and the two suite, they have elevated this tag division to a whole new level. Anytime these guys are on our screen, Astrid and I are stoked. We're always, every week on this show here, Astrid and I seem to be talking about Ace and Bay and how fantastic they are. It was a foregone conclusion they were going to be tag team champions from the minute they tagged together for the first time.
Yep. Koj jumping in, just agreeing with me that, you know, Women's Revolutions, and it's hard. It's when you look at it, it's hard to disagree. And yeah, Ace and Bay, like, they're two of the greatest single, like, I've made it a staple on this show in the comments to call Ace Austin Matt Taven light. There's a multitude of reasons for it. I'm a big Matt Taven fan, and I feel like Ace Austin and Matt Taven kind of do the same thing. To be honest, they really are two sides of the same coin. They're egotistical, great wrestlers who aren't quite treated as well as they should be, who can talk people into a building and make everybody and their mother want to slap them across the face.
At this point, I feel like what Ace Austin has been doing for the last 6 to 8 months, we should be calling Matt Taven Ace Austin light.
I do agree. And I hate to agree because I'm such a Matt Taven fan. But again, Taven is like Kenny King, an underrated guy. I mean, Ring of Honor gave him, and this, you know what? We're not going to get into that discussion because we're going to start talking about Ring of Honor, and we don't have time for that.
Let's go back because I kind of mentioned the part of Bay getting hurt. Obviously, this meant that Ace had to play the part of the partner in peril throughout this match, getting beaten down by Kon and then run over by Angels throughout. Um, we get Bay gets the tag, gets in, finally gets the tag in, gets going, and Diener ends up causing the distraction from the outside to get the design the advantage back. And
Mm-hmm.
it's at this point that Sami Callihan pops in from the crowd, wipes out Diener, beats him down at ringside, and then jumps the barricade and runs away before Angels can get there to save Diener. And then kind of taunts the design from ringside. So where I was sitting for the show, Sammy was actually about 10 feet in front of me, standing right in front of my view of the ring for the end of this match. Um, so that was fun in and of itself. But ultimately, his presence there, as much as it was a distraction for me because I couldn't see through him, was a distraction for Angels, who was looking out watching while Kon got beaten down. By the time Angels turned his attention back to the ring, it was too late. It was a 1-2 sweep for the 1-2-3. It was a really fun way to finish the match. It's really, really fun. I named Callihan my Impact Maker of the Week last week. I really enjoyed the way the turn was followed through at Rebellion. Really enjoyed Sammy's presence in this match. So excited to have the Death Machine back. I can't echo enough how refreshing it is to have Sami Callihan back on our screens.
Yeah, Sami Callihan as Sami Callihan is one of the most interesting people in all of wrestling, and it's really great to see him doing him again. Um, he will make Cody Deaner feel like the biggest deal in the world during this feud, and it's going to be great, and it's going to give Deaner so much needed experience with working with a main event talent.
Yeah.
Because for those who forget, Sami Callihan is a former world champion at the top of the card, and he's a guy who Impact, at a moment's notice, will put into that world title picture like a Kenny King in every other spot. They'll take Callihan and go, oh, world title, we'll put you there. And Callihan will deliver an A+ match.
You know,
Okay.
I think some people may even forget because it was during the Empty Arena era that we got Sami Callihan versus Kenny Omega in what was widely considered to be one of the best matches of. And unfortunately, we had to go without Sammy for a little bit after he got hurt, and then we got to kind of have him dealing a little bit more in these intricacies in the backstage throughout this design segment. So to have him back, have him leading this story with Diener and carrying a lot of it along, it is just such a huge notch in the belt of Diener, but also just a feather in the cap of Sami Callihan that these two are both headed for big things.
Barry says, after tonight, I wonder if Callahan is going to become involved with Ace and Bay and become Austin Bay and Callahan, as it would fit the ABC name. I mean, I think Bullet Club Japan would have a massive problem with Sami Callihan being Bullet Club, but otherwise, I don't see an issue with it.
I mean, I think Bullet Club Japan currently has a problem with Ace Austin and Chris Bay carrying the Bullet Club name since they were Jay White recruits and they've, banished Jay White from the group. But that's something that's maybe a story for further down the road.
You know what's funny? And this is a hilarious thing. Matt Taven used to do a segment on YouTube where he would do these things in videos, and he would go to indie shows and he would go up to people who were wearing Bullet Club things, and he would go, name 10 members of Bullet Club, because this is back when Bullet Club was at their heyday, and people could never name enough Bullet Club members. If you ask me right now, I don't think I can name 5 members in Bullet Club, because I get to Ace and Bay, and then I go, I think LP is still in Bullet Club.
I believe so. I could probably name 10, although I'm not entirely certain. I haven't been keeping up with the Japanese side to know other than Jay White and Juice, who else got dropped, if anybody,
Like
and
I'm like,
whether
is Fale still there? I think he's
House of Torture is still involved.
yeah. It's
But
so weird. Like Bullet Club is.
is Melball in our comments? I'm sure she could list us 10 Bullet Club members.
I wish Melball was here so she could tell us all of the Bullet Club because I guarantee you she could. But we're gonna move on. I think we should.
Yeah,
Move on
before we get too off track with Bullet Club here, because we've just spent a fair amount of time talking about Ace and Bay, let's not gloss over the fact that early on in this match, we got the cut backstage where Santino Marella was attacked and taken out, and medics were tending to him backstage again. And Tom and Matt made sure to bring to light, last time this happened, it was Sammy, but why would Sammy do this now that he's not aligned with the design and all of the design are in the ring, so it couldn't have been them. And immediately after the match finished, we go right backstage to Santino, just as Dirty Dango is showing up to check on him. Santino talks about how he got jumped from behind. He tried to fight back. He tried to hit a Cobra. He couldn't, but he managed to grab a tuft of hair. I'm not sure how you grab a tuft of someone's hair without seeing who they were, but we'll run with it because Dango's running with it and decides that, he tells Santino that he has to resign from his position as assistant dictator of authority, which never was a real thing, as Santino mentions, because now he's going to take on the hat of detective of authority.
I'm gonna miss Santino now that he's gone. Now, we can be clear. We think this is pretty much writing off Santino from being part of Impact for the foreseeable future, right?
Well, the doctors tell him to take a couple weeks off. So my thought is he maybe takes until Under Siege, maybe a little bit longer. I still stand by the fact that I believe this is Dango.
I do too. I although the hair doesn't fit Dango, so I don't know where the. But as Barry says, it might have come from somewhere other than the head. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't fit Dango's hairstyle, so I don't think it was Dango. But yeah, everything leads me to believe it was Dango.
The fact that Dango's always the first one there, I don't know who else it possibly can be unless they're setting up a big surprise down the line of somebody that we're not thinking about.
Is it
everything aligns for it to be Dango, and for us to look down the line here to whether it's Under Siege, whether it's another event after Under Siege, possibly having Santino's first one-on-one in-ring action against Dirty Dango.
I'd be down for it. It'd be fun. Like this, it was quick, it was silly, it was stupid, but you know what? It made me laugh, so it's worth my time.
I'm just going to make a comment here because I watched tonight's show with my girlfriend who was with me at the live show in Toronto as well, and seeing the backstage segment here, she made the comment of a missed opportunity that she thinks we should have Detective Dirty Dango.
Yes.
And then he could be the Triple D.
He could be the Triple D. I love Dirty Dango. I love him with Santino. Santino is perfection in all ways, in all things. It's still amazing to go back and think that there was a moment in time where they almost made Santino world champion. Like, and you laugh at that thought now, like looking at him now. There's like you laugh and you go, "That's crazy. It would never have happened." But if you go back, there was a moment in time where it might have almost happened, and I think it would have been a great call.
I still remember watching that very first episode where Santino jumped the rail and came in and won the title.
Yep.
And how it blew my mind that a fan could jump out of the audience and win the title.
Yep.
And seeing from that all the way to where we are now, and just the evolution of Santino Marella as a character has been so much fun to watch, and just having him here on Impact has been so much fun. I hope this isn't the end of him for an extended period. I hope this is just, him taking a few weeks off. Maybe he's going to miss a couple of these upcoming tapings, and then he'll be back for a major story arc with whoever it is that has attacked him to, reveal who it was. If Detective Dango finds it out, if it's not him, or if Santino can identify that it was him, whatever the case may be. Seeing him wrestle live at Rebellion was so much fun again. I'm I'm not ready for Santino to be done for an extended period. He had his son at the show with him, which was a ton of fun as well. I know he talked in interviews about getting back in the ring so that his son could see him wrestle because his son, wasn't old enough when he was wrestling in WWE before. He's just he's the kind of guy, and his style is so perfect for somebody to be able to wrestle that style later into their years, that he hasn't taken a ton of dangerous bumps, he hasn't beaten his body down to the point that he can't keep going, and so he's got a ton of miles in the tank still.
Yeah. Koji brings us a list, and I'm not questioning Koji's authority on this one, but there's a couple of these names that I don't think are still Bullet Club, but we can go with it. Ace Austin, Chris Bay, Gallows, and Anderson are the club in WWE. I don't know if Bullet Club still recognizes them, considering they're in the WWE. I think Juice is out of the Bullet Club, last I knew.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Juice ended up in AEW with Jay White in their what was it, Bullet Club Gold or something.
Yeah, knockoff Bullet Club. Then you have Kenta, Taiji, Sho,
Taiji Shimori, Sho,
yeah.
Gato, Evil, Yujiro. I didn't know Clark Connors had joined, but I'll trust that Koj knows something I don't.
Yeah.
And then Dick Togo, Chase Owens, and David Finlay, which I did know.
Yeah. So there we go. That is the list of Bullet Club. Again, half of those names I would have forgotten. I mean, I probably would have gotten to the Tokyo Pimp if I would have thought long enough.
Yeah.
Chase Owens is great. I really wish for good things for him. I wish, who, if I could have any name off that list to come into Impact and do a run with Ace and Bay, it would be Owens. I really think Chase Owens, the crown jewel, would be a nice fit.
Chase Owens would be really fun. It's hard because he's part not Chase, but the one I'm going to say is part of the House of Torture. But I would say Show would be really fun to align with Ace Austin and Chris Bay as well.
Yeah, I agree. Show is great. Juice is in AW Bullet Club Gold, but I'm not sure either. I could be off. Need Melball for sure. We all need Melball here to clarify things for Japanese wrestling. And for those of you who don't, make sure you go check out Andre and Melball. They had a fantastic episode drop. I believe it was yesterday, talking about the final episode of not the Goddess of Stardom. It was something else.
Yeah, their Stardom reviews are always good.
Yeah. I know it was a Stardom review. They did Battle Royal was the first match. It was great.
Yeah, they also talk about their NJPW Purioso review every week as well, and talking all things New Japan there. Let's kind of backtrack and go forward at the same time. Next up, we got the Death Dolls, or the Death Dolls backstage segment. And a little bit of this I couldn't really make heads or tails of because it was a little bit sporadic with Jessica. Upset about not having anything, upset that they haven't got Kaya back, upset at losing titles, upset that their magic's not working. And Rosemary basically just tries to tell her she doesn't know why nothing's working, that it's just they don't have enough power now that they've lost the titles to get to the undead realm. And what got me hyped for this is the way that we got Crazy Steve entering frame here, because this was just so perfectly executed as Crazy Steve coming back, and Steve and Rosemary have this nice, relieving emotional reunion. Yeah, really an emotional reunion. And then Jessica is kind of there as like this outcast because Jessica is not Havoc anymore. Jessica does not have Havoc's memories, so she doesn't know who Crazy Steve is. She doesn't know how they know each other. She's very confused. She is excited because her button-up jacket matches with Steve's jacket, so they could be jacket buddies. But this isn't jacket time. This is undead time.
Oh, no. Don't remind me of jacket time.
So this got me excited at the possibility of a Decay reunion, but I don't know if that's actually what we're getting. Steve basically questions Rosemary, you've tried everything, but have you talked to everyone? And kind of leans and leads Rosemary in the direction there. And Rosemary picks up on it and says, Father James Mitchell has done us wrong so many times. And Steve suggests, if you want to get back to the undead realm, that's your route. And so we're left that now Jessica and Rosemary are going to head off and talk to Father James Mitchell, which just feels like how we're getting Havoc.
Yeah. Crazy Steve is not the wise man. I don't think he's the Impact. However, I think James Mitchell is Impact's answer to Paul Heyman, but which is great. I love this. I love seeing Crazy Steve walk in. He didn't say a word. His head's almost down as he's walking in. He's just like walking into frame. He doesn't have to say a thing, and Rosemary's just drawn to him. And they have that moment where they're just like their foreheads touch, and they just lean their foreheads against each other. And it's such a sweet, tender moment. And he, again, like you said, it's a bare basic promo. Jessica's in the back being the fangirl, being like, oh my god, we can be friends. And Steve's like, who? What? Huh? How? Rosemary's just like, forget it. It doesn't matter. And I love the line. It's the one line that you were missing that I think told it all together. When you said, Steve's like, you've tried everything, but have you talked to everyone? And Rosemary's initial response, everyone we want to.
Yeah.
That perfect line of everything from the emotional aspect before is just gone. And in an instant, she's irritated because she knows where he's going and she doesn't want to deal with him anymore because she knows what happens every time she makes a deal with the devil.
Both figuratively and realistically.
Yes. It's fantastic. I love this. Father James Mitchell, dude, he feels like an Impact original too. Like, this dude has been around forever. And it's so nice to see him brought in and to tie all the craziness of the supernatural together. And like you said earlier, talking about the comparison, Cody, compare to me this quicker promo that feels like it had so much more going on than the Coven promo with your tag team champions earlier in the supernatural realm.
Honestly, like, how do you even compare? Like, you contrast them ultimately because you have one promo here between two who just believe everything they're doing. They just put it all on the line. They come into this promo as themselves and just own the screen, own the story, own the conversation. Jessica feels like an afterthought in this because Rosemary and Crazy Steve are so good at what they do. And you look at the Coven and it's just like you said earlier, it's like watching a parody. It's like Taylor Wilde and Jessica and Kylan rather are playing dress up as Rosemary and Steve. It's like they're mocking Rosemary and Steve. Like, they have no idea what they're doing. They're just two people who grabbed a deck of tarot cards and a couple candles and sat down and they're like, well, Rosemary's been successful with it for 10 years. I'm sure I can make it work.
It's such a shame because, like you said, Impact has such a history with Decay, with Abyss, with, you know what? It's not the same, but we'll throw it in there. The Hardys.
Yeah, I was just thinking we skipped over that earlier. The broken Matt Hardy.
I was going to say, you skipped it earlier, and I wanted to say it, but I was like, I'll leave it for the other portion when we talk about it. Willow. Yep. Yeah, Willow, the Hardy, all the broken heart, Matt Hardy stuff. Yeah.
I mean, Sting still had that character for times in Impact. He played a little bit different too. He played the Joker character for a while. Yeah, but he did play the supernatural, and you had the Raven stuff and Raven's Flock back in the day.
Yeah, Raven's Flock back in the day. I always consider Sting to be more Coven than I do Rosemary. To be perfectly honest with you, every time Sting does, as Barry would call it, spooky bollocks, I just think of Sting stuff feels more like Kylan King than it does Rosemary. That being said, it's such a great promo. I want to see Rosemary in the world title picture. What I want to see out of this is Rosemary goes to Father James Mitchell. She gets Jessica Havoc back. We get Havoc back, but Havoc comes back as a heel.
Havoc comes back as the monster Havoc, not the Decay Havoc.
Back to the beginning, back to the face mask, back to the Father James Mitchell Havoc that we saw in the beginning. that Havoc comes back, that monster Havoc, and Rosemary finds a way to overcome her, and then you put her up against Deonna, because I think Deonna can switch. I don't think that Deonna's a babyface. I think that she's a tweener.
Yeah, at this point, I definitely think Deonna is very much towing that line where she can play up the heel side, but the fan base and the crowd respects her so much that they're still going to chant and cheer for her against somebody else.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But this was
No,
great.
it was a great way to kind of just keep this story relevant, keep it in our mind, keep it moving. It wasn't a giant leap forward, but it was, it went through a wave of emotions, right? We had the highs and lows, the excitement of a possible Decay reunion, leading into the, question marks of a possible Father James Mitchell, now a Havoc return. Lots of different pieces in play here. Rosemary really leading at the center of it. Crazy Steve coming in, just, giving a quick cameo here to not forget about the fact that the Decay is still the Decay, and something to keep them moving. We don't want to forget about them. We don't want it to get stale. Just if we can keep a slow progression and the long story on this.
Yeah, it was great.
Let's jump out of that and back to the ring, where we got more in-ring action from one Jody Threat. Another kind of quick warm-up match as she took on a local talent from Quebec, Silesia Sparks. She was a really fun personality to see. She had some quirks and some charisma behind her that made it really fun to watch her play it out. The Toronto crowd, again, similar to Channing Decker, they love their hometown guys and girls. Jody Threat having such a long-standing history in Toronto, they just absolutely were 100% behind Jody Threat throughout this match. And a quick shout out and a thank you to our good friend Matthew Raywolf, because he gave us a quick plug on the show that Jody Threat is making an impact.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate it. Your check's in the mail.
Quick squash, not much to talk about out of this. I did love and laugh at the quick segment in the corner where Silesia manages to avoid the kick out of the corner from Jody Threat. She stands in the corner and looks at the crowd and she says, "I'm a genius," and then turns around and gets kicked in the mouth.
Yeah, Jody looked great in this. It was my first time seeing her wrestle ever. So I was excited to see this. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I'm excited to see what she does going forward.
Yeah, we have her first feud set up already. After last week when she came to the rescue of Terra Rising against Alicia Edwards.
Triple H?
No. Female Terra Rising.
Oh. You got me excited. I'm like, wait, Triple H is in Impact? When did that happen?
You missed it, Ed. He had boobs and everything.
Damn it!
No, but Jody Threat and Alicia Edwards, I mean, Alicia's always good for a first feud for anybody kind of just coming in and getting their feet wet in the company. So that's a fun way to move forward out of this.
She's like Aaliyah. She's there. She's beatable. Just go ahead.
And, Jody using a modified version of an F5 that she dubbed the Toronto area code as an F416.
Yeah, I really hated that when Raywolde said it on commentary. Wait, no, it wasn't Raywolde. It was Hannafin.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they said that, I'm just like, oh my fucking God. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, just call it an F4, F460. I'm like, oh. Because, we've got, Brock has the F5, and because Wardlow has to be better than Brock, Wardlow's got the F10. And now we got Jody, who she's not quite good enough as Brock. So it's an F416.
I mean, She also, could have just went with a Tiger Feint kick and just called it a 416 instead of a 619.
Sure, that would probably have been better. At least that makes sense.
Coming out of this, we got more from the knockouts. We did get a reminder of Killer Kelly that she's not gone, not forgotten. This was a really, really fun promo, just to keep her relevant after not being on the show proper. She's looking for a playmate. She's looking for a friend, just somebody to play with. She wants to have some fun. And she had so much fun at Hardcore War. And then she found someone as sick and twisted as herself, the perfect playmate, as she called her. And she's talking of one Masha Slamovich, which was supposed to be the match tonight, which is a match that I have been looking forward to since both of these ladies debuted a year ago.
Yeah. I when I heard about this match and I knew that you were going, I was like, oh my god, Cody must be in heaven. His two ladies are going to be fighting against each other, and Cody's going to be there to watch it. And then I saw on Twitter that Kelly wasn't going to be able to do it, and I was like, oh, I
Just
don't want to.
being there for the Hardcore War when they came out and had that face down in the ring in the middle of the Hardcore War match was enough to just get me excited for the one-on-one that's inevitably coming between these two. And
it sounds like it's coming soon. Like,
yeah,
they didn't drop it. It's not like Killer Kelly's gone. Like you said, she's not gone. She specifically calls out Masha in this promo. The whole promo is built around she wants, like you said, she wants a playmate, and Masha's that playmate. I'm excited.
I personally am hoping for it to be something for Under Siege, maybe the countdown to Under Siege, but
I did wonder when she was talking about wanting a playmate. I wasn't sure if we were going to get, what's her name? Alex Gracia again?
yeah.
If you know, you know. And if you don't, well, go look at her Twitter.
I feel like I've kind of laid out everything here. So I'm going to leave the next one to you because it was a segment that I hadn't heard anything about, didn't know was coming. So lay out for me what you took notes of this and how you felt about the Kaz segment.
I like the Kaz segment. So they're talking a lot about Kaz's past. And for a lot of it, I was like, okay, ho-hum, it is what it is. It's a nice recap. And Kaz talks about not wanting to be that veteran that comes back and wants to make everything about him. He wants to make it about Impact, about making Impact a better place, about making Impact, I don't want to say great again, but making Impact, what it used to be. And then Gia asks a really great question. She's like, well, then why did you leave in 2014? What spurred the decision to leave in 2014? And it's not often that you get to really go ahead and bag on a company that you work for and go ahead and trash a lot of what happened beforehand. And he starts talking about how the mismanagement and the constant ever-fluxing change of people who were not only in charge but ownership of this company, whether it be the Jarretts, whether it be Dixie Carter and her parents owning the company, when it was Hulk Hogan running the show, then when you brought in Billy Pumpkins running the show. I don't even know if Kaz was there for Billy Pumpkins. I don't think he was, because if it was 2014, Billy Pumpkins came in after that. But like that constant change of just people running the show and the mismanagement and the people that were put in charge that never could get on the same page with the talent. And he's like, me and Daniels were here doing our thing, and I've done so much for this company. And they looked at me and Daniels and they say, we don't need what you guys provide. We don't want you around. And they put us on the shelf. And he's like, my contract was coming up, and I decided, well, if they don't want me here, I don't want to be here. So me and Daniels are just going to go and be on our own. And so now next week we get part 2. I think the entire interview is on their YouTube channel.
Yeah, they said that the extended version of part 1 would be released on their socials following the show.
I know I saw it on YouTube when I was searching Impact earlier today during the show. I know that I saw that the interview was there, and I wasn't sure if it was just an extended part 1 or if it was the entire interview. It's really good. I like listening to Kaz talk because he's being honest and he's talking about things about Impact that everybody knows, and he's not sugarcoating it. And he's come back with the right mentality, and you can see it in the way they've booked him. And feeling like Kaz, seeing the way he's been booked his entire career, it fits with his character that this is how he would come back to Impact, to make Impact great, and to not try to be the main. Even though he was the main event when he came back, it wasn't about him. It was about making Josh better.
Yeah.
His match with Josh wasn't about Kazarian. It was about Josh.
Yeah. It was a nice look back, a nice history lesson, a really good kind of reflective of Kaz's career, where he came from, how he got there, how he came in, how he grew to be where he is now. It's always so borderline for me when a company and a story tries to do this, to pull back the curtain on backstage politics without wanting to completely break the kayfabe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they still want to stay within that realm of the universe of, you know, all of this being realistic. You know, spoilers, we all know what wrestling is at this point. I don't think anybody's really surprised by the fact that we're not actually beating the crap out of each other out there. It's just, I think they did this in a very tactful way, but just watching it and thinking about it, and like the fact that they're trying to pull back and talk about how Kaz wasn't being put in positions to succeed, he wasn't being given opportunities, he wasn't being given titles, title shots, he wasn't being booked at all. Him and Daniels, you know, they weren't wanted, they weren't needed, and so they were just shoved aside. And telling that story without just acknowledging the fact, like, if you're capable of winning your matches, it shouldn't matter what you're doing with it as long as you're winning. But when you're not winning, trying to tell that story of blaming the management for you not winning is always a touchy subject for me. And I think they did well with it. I'm really interested to see where kind of part two goes with this, and how Kaz's story is going to move forward right now. Where do we see Kazarian in the ring, in feuds? Who's he lining up for? How does this story of Kaz's history set him up for whoever he's feuding with next?
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping part two is, because they say part two is the future.
Yeah.
So it was good.
Yeah. We got the rundown for next week with some interesting stuff coming up. Obviously, we just mentioned part two of the Frankie Kazarian sit down is kind of the focal point next week. We've got Steve Maclin, Champaign Singh, and Shira in a 6-person tag taking on PCO and 2 partners of PCO's choosing. Did you want to speculate at all who you think PCO could be teaming with, Ed?
Bret Hart? No, not Bret Hart. Just kidding. No, I don't even know. Heath Slater and Rhino, maybe? Like,
Sylvain Grenier and Rene Dupree?
Sure. Make it all Canadian. That would be, actually, now that you say that, I kind of want La Resistance. That would be fucking fantastic. Rob Conway, can we get Rob Conway too?
Yeah.
He can be on the outside with them. Decay, yeah, maybe. I'm trying to think of who Champaign Singh and Shira have issues with. And for the life of me, I can't even think of who they've wrestled.
They wrestled Heath and Rhino both at the Countdown to Rebellion and on last week's BTI. So okay.
That makes a lot of sense then.
Maybe.
Time Machine?
You could bring Motor City Machine Guns into this.
Yeah.
Time Machine, Motor City Machine Guns, or even just the Time Splitters of Alex Shelley and Kushida if you don't need Sabin in it. Possibilities there, I guess. The other matches we have for next week, we've got Yuya Uemura and Bhupinder Gujjar taking on Moose and Myers, as I speculated we would be heading towards after last week's Moose versus Uemura match.
By the way, is that the hardest tag team name to ever in the world pronounce? Uemura and Gujjar versus, my God, can you put 2 people with harder names together?
I mean,
and make
just in general, Yuya Uemura is pretty hard to say in and of itself. So,
and then you back it up with Bhupinder
Gujjar.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to do it. I'm sorry. I apologize. I fail English.
We get the previously mentioned Alicia Edwards versus Jody Threat match, and then we mentioned it during the next week. Tom and Matt mentioned it again during the main event. There is a huge surprise that nobody sees coming happening tomorrow night at the Chicago tapings. If you're watching this Monday on our replay on Backbreaker Video, you probably already have the opportunity to look this up and to see who it may or may not have been. The obvious, let's just address the elephant in the room here. I don't like to look at spoilers. I try to avoid them as best as I can. I don't consider this necessarily a spoiler since it, as of right now, is just speculation and unconfirmed reports. Trinity Fatu, aka WWE's Naomi, reportedly is this supposed surprise tomorrow night, Ed. If this is the case, or whether this is the case or not, how would you feel if it is Trinity showing up in Impact? Or as Barry suggests, Nia Jax potentially. Could you see somebody else? Even if Trinity is there, is Trinity the big surprise? Or since they're still touting it as something nobody sees coming, is there something else and Trinity is the decoy?
I don't know. I think part of me thinks that these Impact lines were filmed a week ago when people didn't know it was Naomi or Trinity. I gotta in the habit of calling her Trinity. Um, yeah, as we talked about in the pre-show chat before we went live, it is definitely the neon glowing, glow in the dark elephant in the room that Trinity has supposedly signed a deal. I think it's a short term deal. Cody says it could be anything up to a year. I agree. I think it's somewhere between 4 months to a year long deal. Um, I'm excited. I like what she brings to the table. My bigger question is I don't know if she's I don't know if she's ready to hang with the top of the women's division, the Knockouts division in Impact. That being said, anybody's better than Taylor Wilde, so bring it on. Yeah, you could be bringing in somebody to. Could you imagine if Impact brings in Trinity, and then all of a sudden at Multiverse, they decide to go absolute crazy balls to the wall, and we get Mercedes versus Trinity?
We have just announced tonight the NJPW Strong women's title will be determined the inaugural winner in a four-way match at an upcoming show here. I forget when the upcoming show is. Mercedes Moné is in that match, along with Willow Nightingale, Momo Kogo, and somebody else that I can't remember off the top of my head. Mercedes Moné could be both the New Japan Women's Champion and the New Japan Strong Women's Champion. Head into Multiverse United 2 as the double champ, defending her strong championship against Trinity. And if Trinity has only signed a contract long enough to get to Multiverse United 2 and then leaves to be the NJPW Strong Champion, and you have Monet and Trinity running New Japan, one on each side of the ocean.
Yeah, it could be fantastic. It could be. And by the way, she is no longer the. Yeah, I was gonna say she didn't lose it a month ago. She lost it over the weekend. She lost it on the 23rd, 5 days ago at the All Star Grand Queendom event.
I stand corrected.
No. When you said it, I thought I had to go look it up because I thought the same thing. I was like, I don't think she's still the IWGP champion. Yeah, Mayu Iwatani did beat her for the title. Um, she won it about a month and a half, 2 months ago. No, she won it January.
She won it at Wrestle Kingdom.
No, she debuted at Wrestle Kingdom and won it at Battle in February.
Yeah.
So she had it for about 2 months.
Through a couple big defenses.
She defended it once. She had one big title defense. I mean, she had a 3-match card, and Stardom doesn't do it, so she's there, wrestling week in, week out. She wrestled her 3 matches. She had a really good time. She did a great job. Yeah, I could totally see her winning that match, and I think it'd be fun to book Trinity versus Naomi, considering the backstory and considering the history. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Or bring Mercedes into Impact and have them work as a tag team and have Naomi as the outsider working against the Impact girls and being, one girl against the world, and having Mercedes pop in and out as her friend to help to fend off the foes.
There's plenty of opportunity. I know I talked to Astrid about the option as well, that you could have Trinity show up as we've had Tasha feuding with Giselle Shaw and Savannah Evans now. Trinity could show up as Tasha's backup for a tag match against that team.
Now, I will gladly listen to Barry's point of view that Trinity. I agree. Trinity and Impact can only be good. There is no downside to bringing Trinity in. I wholeheartedly agree with that. If it can attract a few more viewers to this product, I wholeheartedly agree. A name value like Trinity is nothing bad. However, I will go to bat that while Impact's Knockouts division is one of the best women's divisions in wrestling, when you have Stardom as a thing, no women's division is ever as good as Stardom. And then when you say, okay, well, North American women's wrestling, I will still point to WWE and go, as poorly booked as it can be at times, between the main roster and NXT's women's division, with those girls coming up, there is so much going on good in WWE right now that it's hard to say that they don't have the best women's division in North American wrestling.
I will contend with you all day, every day on that one, that Impact is the best in North America, but we don't have enough time tonight to dive into that contention.
We still have to talk about this main event match.
Which, again, is, I mean, not the most glowing representation of how good Impact's women can be, but...
I loved how we're having this discussion. Like, and let's talk about the main event, Cody, shall we? The best of your women's division can get. Your brand new champion taking on the best challenger you can throw at her on.
If you can show me a time that WWE had 2 of 3 shows in a row, including one pay-per-view, main evented by their women, I may contend with you.
I can't. And we all know I can't. We all know that I can't do that.
But this was a match. I honestly, the only note I took on this match was Deonna got the win with the Venus de Milo.
So,
and then Kylan attacked after the match. That's literally all I took for notes from this match, because even watching it live, it was just frustratingly bad.
Okay. So I got so bored with this match. All right, we'll leave that for now. I got so bored in the middle of this match. We can have discuss Parrish's comment in a moment. So they go ahead, and on the outside, she pulls the card. Kylan pulls the card, and she Taylor puts it to her, and she's laughing, and she's having a great time. The High Priestess is the card. They make sure to mention that it's the High Priestess, and that it told her something that she should do. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what the High Priestess means in a tarot card deck. So I've gone to Google, and I've gone to Wikipedia, which, as you know, since everybody can edit it, is the best source of information, because it's always accurate because everybody can edit it. The meaning of the High Priestess is a card of mystery, stillness, and passivity. The card suggests that it's time to retreat and reflect upon the situation and trust your inner instincts to guide you through it. Things around you are not what they appear to be. Taylor Wilde had... Now, to put this in perspective, Taylor Wilde had just finally gotten the better of Deonna Purrazzo, and she pulled the High Priestess. And I refer back to the last line of that thing. Things are not what they appear to be. It's time to retreat. Oh, God. Just... And I don't think Cody's saying that they main eventing makes them better. But it shows faith in the product that you can put on such a good match that you're allowing your women to go on and main event shows week after week with no fear of what's going to happen.
It's about featuring your women. It's about putting your women in position to succeed. It's about putting your women on the same pedestal as the men.
And Impact does that better than anybody.
WWE will give it once in a while, but usually only to a Bayley, a Becky, a Charlotte. That's it. I think you get it a little bit more. I can't speak to Bianca at this point because I haven't been watching, or obviously Ronda gets it as well. But it's very few people in WWE who get that trust and that faith to be your headliner on any given program. Yeah. Impact gives it regularly.
Yeah, and I will say that the women get featured incredibly well on NXT, and often get the main event as they did this week. Now, granted, it didn't turn out the best because, unfortunately, things happened in the ring and Indy Hartwell got hurt. But, they were on their way to having a good match, and the women main evented that. And they opened the latest PLE. They opened with a big ladder match that really set the tone for the show. But like I said, that's neither here nor there. Impact is doing incredible work with their women's division. Their Knockouts division is one of the best in North America. And you get down to brass tacks when you have to argue the point. It's a fun discussion for another day. Impact is the best in Canada then. That's the British Commonwealth, so it's best of 1 out of 5th in the planet. Yeah. I get it. It's like I said, I'm not saying that Impact can't be the best. I personally disagree, but I think at that point you're literally splitting hairs. But if we're talking the best in the planet, all discussion starts and ends with Stardom.
Whenever you're talking best of anything, it's always going to be subjective. What do you like best? What do you get out of it? What do you enjoy? Barry and I obviously are on the same page here that we believe what Impact brings is the best to our subjective viewpoints of what we're looking for out of the women in the wrestling industry. Absolutely. Stardom, obviously, I have been a big supporter of Stardom for a while now, and I truly believe that what Stardom offers is truly some of the best women's wrestling in the world. But it's hard to compare when it's a product that is entirely women as opposed to a co-gender wrestling company that features their women above their men more often than not.
Yeah, it's great. Like I said, I have no, and it's one of the reasons why I love Impact so much, and it's the reason why I beat the Impact drum. Like, I'm an NXT stan. I will live and breathe through NXT. I'm going in 4 weeks. I'm going to the PLE in Lowell. I am super excited for that show. But Impact, I've beat the drum for Impact. Like I said, I used to pay once a month. I would get one of the 4 weekly shows to keep up with the weekly Impact pay-per-views that were $10 a week when it was TNA, Impact, NWA, TNA. I've beat the drum that Impact is one of the best wrestling companies in the world for years. It's the company that will not die. It's no matter how close they get to death, including, and I tell this story all the time because it's one of the best things that I think of Impact. You go into one of your biggest pay-per-view weekends of the year and you don't have the funds to put on the show that you've already promoted. And they're close to canceling the show day of because they can't pay for the show to be able to enter the arena and put the show on. And Billy Pumpkins comes in and bails them out and makes sure that I believe it's Bound for Glory goes on the air. Yeah. This company has been on its deathbed more times than any other wrestling company in the world.
Impact is the PCO of the wrestling world.
It really is. And so it makes perfect sense, now I think about it, that he's the first challenger for Steve Maclin. But it's been a wonderful 2 hours. Ashley's going to hate us in the morning when she finds out we went 2 hours again. Astrid asked us one thing, to keep the show to an hour and a half. And we never do.
We always have so much to talk about when we don't get to talk for a few weeks, Ed.
It's also because there's no Astrid here to keep us in line. Yeah. So we just go off on tangents.
Something like that. I mean, how long did we talk about Bullet Club tonight? How long did we talk about the Coven tonight? Because I feel like it was far too long again.
Probably too long. Mr. Cody, tell us where we can find you.
Always here. At least I'm here 100% of the time, 50% of the time. No future plans in my sights, but that's always in flux. I am bound by the NHL playoffs at this moment. If there happens to be a hockey game that I have to work on a Thursday night, unfortunately, that is the nature of the beast at this point. So let's just pray that the NHL bookers decide that my hometown team here in Edmonton gets no Thursday night games the rest of the way, and I can always be here to talk some Impact Wrestling. You can follow me on the Twitter at Cody Defoe. My Twitch is the same, but still inactive as I need to find time in my life between hockey and wrestling to get onto my Twitch and produce stuff for myself. right here on Astrid's channel is where we always feature Making an Impact, whether it's Astrid Pizarro on YouTube or Astrid Pizarro on Twitch. Hers are on the very bottom scrolling right now. Give her a follow and a subscribe if you have not already. Hit that thumbs, hit that bell, whatever the case may be. We'd love to see you here every week. Ed, where can the wonderful people find you?
I just want to quickly say thank you, Barry, for joining us. Good night and have a great evening. People can find me on my socials at edfries12584 on Twitter. They can find me on Twitch at edfries2002. They can find me every Tuesday night with the lovely Astrid Pizarro as we talk all things NXT on Taking Over on the Olay Podcasting Network at Olay, our local establishment on Twitch. It's been fun. Cody, I always enjoy hanging out with you and talking some wrestling, but it's been 2 hours. It's a late night for both of us.
I want to give just a quick shout out, as I do every week, to everyone in our comments here. Astrid popping by, even though you're not on screen. Barry, Omen Fan, Koj, Parrish, everybody that came in, dropped a comment, whether you watched and joined us in what we're talking about, whether you just lurked, if you're watching after the fact on Backbreaker Video, or if you ever miss a Thursday, make sure you go to Backbreaker on Mondays to catch the follow-up replay stream. Drop us a comment, drop us a line. We enjoy the conversation, always.
Also, speaking of Mike and Backbreaker Media, we want to thank Mike for the raid earlier. We don't have an alert function, and I'm not Astrid, so I don't have her Twitch feed up, but I happened to be in the Twitch side and noticed that Mike did raid us with 2 people when his stream ended, which is why we jumped up a little bit earlier on. So thank you, Mike. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for, like Cody says, putting it on Backbreaker Media every week. We'll do the Astrid post for Astrid. We'll see. Cody will see you guys next week. Astrid will hopefully be back next week. Hopefully Cody will be here as long as the NHL playoffs allow. I'm going to go cheer for my Boston Bruins for tomorrow night. Have a great night, everybody. And goodbye.